welcome everybody to a brand new Record Club episode of the Jams and Tea podcast, where we spin the jams and spill the tea, and every week we review a record recommended by one of the four hosts of this podcast. And this week it is August. You fucking savior. It's your pick this week with Meat Loaf's Bat Out of Hell. Please give us a 10-page dissertation as to why mom rock is superior to dad rock.
No, just give us the abstract.
So I picked this album, Bat Out of Hell, because this is the greatest album of all time.
Yeah.
All right.
That's fucking oath, is what that is.
This is an album that is so distinctly distilled to the 1970s. There is no other decade in which this album could be produced, no other decade in which this album could find the success it did, because this record moved so Meat Loaf claims, or at least his agents claim, about 45 million fucking units. This is one of the most successful albums of all time, and it is one of the most batshit insane albums of all time in the best fucking way possible. I don't know what else I can say to introduce it, so I think, Tyler, I'll hand this over to you to give some context.
Absolutely, happy to. So, Meat Loaf is the creation of one Mr. Jim Steinman, performed beautifully in an Oscar-worthy performance by one Michael Lee Aday. Where to begin with Meat Loaf? So Jim Steinman, it should be said, was a budding songwriter, a man with an incredibly ambitious vision for this rock opera that transcendentally conveyed a very particular kind of ridiculous balls to the wall feeling. You can think about it like in relation to something like Grease at the time, but almost as like a kind of response to that, because it has some of the same sort of like 70s charm and just ridiculousness of that, but it also like is aware of the fundamental stupidity of it as well and leans into that aesthetic.
Songs are also just better than Grease, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing about Jim Steinman is he's one of the greatest songwriters of the last 50 years to ever live, frankly. He was able to just churn out magnum opus song after magnum opus song on this, and of course on a record I want to shout out, the Bat Out of Hell 2, the sequel album, which came out like 16 years after this, and is somehow a great album also, despite being twice its length. But that is just a testament to Steinman's incredible musical acumen, songwriting ability, and his, not even just that, but his ability to craft the whole vision for Meat Loaf as this figure and what the songs are about. And yeah, like just everything about this album is a masterpiece. I know that there's probably some degree of irony in the love that some people have for this record now, and it's being like, oh, it's this goofy kind of like shticky sort of thing. But I 100% unironically, with full sincerity, adore everything about this record. And I find the sincerity of it charming. I don't laugh at it like, oh, it's so like kitschy and funny and like, it's like, oh,
loving it ironically is such a baby brain ass way to appreciate something this fucking committed.
It makes no fucking sense, because it's like loving this ironically is like loving The Room seriously and thinking it's like this masterclass in filmmaking.
Well, the thing about Bat Out of Hell is that it's very, and Steinman in general is very self-aware of the sort of cliches that he leans into, but it's not about pointing at them and saying, ha ha ha, what dumb cliches they are. It's about celebrating the joy that underlies where they come from. And it's about earnestly writing these songs about being in love and being young and being like this fiery ball of testosterone, and the kind of beauty in that, and the sheer uncelebrated gloriousness of it.
And I think at moments admit to the album's greatest credit Also, in rare moments, criticizing and lampooning that same attitude.
Yeah, I mean,
Because this album is far from one-dimensional in terms of its approach to these subjects.
no, I mean, it's like a great musical. It's like any great musical, is it has those endearing, hard on sleeve moments that you sing along to, and it also has those really tongue in cheek moments where you're just laughing your ass off and having a great fucking time. And it's just, this is the most perfect rock opera I've ever heard. And that's just my perspective. I know we all have different perspectives on like this particular niche of music in the 70s, the pop rock wave that overtook that time. I like, not to draw a needless comparison, but when I listen to this, I think a lot of bands like Queen and Bruce Springsteen. And frankly, I enjoy this more than any record by any of those artists, which is not to detriment any of those artists because I love them, particularly Springsteen. But this hits a very particular level that's so irresistible to me, and also like helpfully quite consistent as well, that I am totally swept up in its grasp and completely unable to wrestle myself free from it, even if I wanted to, which I absolutely don't want to. And another thing about it that's so amazing is that this is such an economical record in terms of every single detail of these songs feels like it needs to be there. There's not a single moment I would say is wasted. I mean, we can debate. I know some of you might not enjoy some songs as much as I do, but I think at least if we can all agree in its greatest moments, not a single detail is wasted. There is this unabashed focus and commitment to heavily meticulous song structure that feels like it has been so honed over a period of, I think Steinman had envisioned this at least like 8 years before it was recorded. And so you had this honed to perfection construction that yet it's not really all that simple either. There's so much intricacy and detail and flourish all throughout it. Big credit has to go to producer and instrumentalist Todd Rundgren, who is a big part of why this record sounds the way it does, and also why this record hits the way it does as well, because as well as producing it, he also performs the vast majority of the guitar parts on this record as well, which are astro fucking nomical. I mean, Jesus Christ. We have to start talking about the title track of this record.
Oh
we
my
have to
gosh.
talk about this song, how this album kicks off. It is 10 of the most perfect minutes of balls to the wall operatic rock I have ever heard and that any of us will ever hear, frankly. Its ebbs and flows and structure are classical, the mark of a truly gifted songwriter, knowing exactly how to modulate tone, loudness, impact, and to make the composition as powerful and layered as possible. August.
Let's just talk about these first 45 seconds, this instrumental buildup, which is you get these sweet, these just these giant massive arena rock sounding guitar tones, and then we get a chorus of piano notes running up and down the keys like like the audience clapping and cheering along, getting ready.
Yes.
And then the drums kick in. They start building and fucking building and building and building. And then you get the final ambience. Yes. And the song is fucking going. You are there.
Yes. And the thing about it is that it doesn't let up at all for a second. This whole song is just in that mode and it keeps it. And not only is it's not like it's the same thing for 10 minutes. This fucker ebbs and flows. It has quieter parts. It has these soulful, sensual moments. It has this ridiculous intensity that at times approaches some of the harder rocking bands of the era, but also never loses touch of that crowd-pleasing pop appeal either. It is this glorious sort of concept track about this fucking horny biker, and it's like every sentiment that Bruce Springsteen expresses on a record like Born to Run about this very particular feeling of wanting to get out and wanting to hit the road and being in love, Meat Loaf and Jim Steinman express with even more concision, with even more heart pulsing directness and with so much more theatrical operatic playfulness, which again, I'm not dissing Springsteen, I'm just making this point of comparison to explain why I find this so unique and satisfying in this really powerful and detailed and layered and strange way that just, god damn, fucking
one
jeez.
thing I particularly love about this song is the instrumentation in contrast with what you're being presented narratively. It's this story of this horny biker kid who picks up a chick, they go out of town, and then they die in a horrendous car crash. But what's so great about this is that the instrumental is consistently triumphant. It is consistently over the top, exciting. It never gives way into any of the potential grief of the story, because as we've already mentioned, this idea of celebrating this cliche, this trope of dying young and just being with someone you love, it takes that to the most ridiculous, comical extreme and just says, fuck yeah, let's do this. Let's die in a 15-car pile up, but it'll be fucking awesome. Yes. And that's what this song's trying to tell you, and it kicks ass.
Yes. Jake.
I mean, I could never hope to imagine or to recapture August's beautiful enthusiasm, but as the person here who I think is most well known for fucking with some really good ass arena rock and just a lot of the things that this draws from, a lot of like southern rock sounds. Like, to me, Bat Out of Hell is in fact, you can almost find in each one of these songs, you can break it down to its DNA of what musical influences made it. And this right here is like if you took Queen's Sheer Heart Attack and squeezed the juice out of it and then put it in a little cup, and then you just fucking hit that shit like a shot. I think one of the best things about this too is that these songs are all they're typically on the longer side, and they do have these really awesome structures, these really ambitious and really large movements that segue in and out of each other, but they also give each movement in and of itself precisely enough time for you to appreciate and sing along with the lyrics. Because I mean, we talked about how Jim Steinman, great songwriter, thematically he's getting at all these broad ideas, but God, just on a line by line basis, I dare anybody to just listen to this song at least once, and then get in their car and listen to it and be like a bat out of hell, I'll be gone, gone, gone when the morning comes. Because they say it a lot in that song, and that's not a criticism. It's because you want to say it and you want to scream it just as many times as they do, and it fucking whips. This is a titanically fantastic song. It's not even the best song on the album.
I mean, I don't, with this album, it's not even a question of best for me, because I'm just caught up in it straight. Second it starts, I'm there, and the whole time it's going, I don't want to turn it off. And
oh gosh.
Never.
And then there's the part on this song where you first actually hear Meat Loaf like 2 minutes into it, and it's this really, he is a fantastic singer. Let's just
really,
absolutely,
he is he's got a very naturally beautiful, just entrancing, haunting voice that also has an incredible range to it. And then you see the man in real life. And
I was gonna say, him from Bob from Fight Club, and you're just that's him.
He's a dude. There's moments on this record where he takes his voice to such extremes, at the end of all wrapped up, no place to go. When he's really pushing that shit, it's man, I'm ready to follow this fucker into the fucking desert. I'm ready to do anything for this man. And I want to shout out as well, like I've talked about his presence, but again, I want to just spend a little bit more time talking about the structure of this opening track, like just how fucking brilliant it is. It takes a lot in musical principle from the progressive rock music of the 70s, of course, but it cherry picks aspects of that structuring and philosophy to make something that's tighter, doesn't waste a single second, and keeps the listener in thrall for every moment. Listen to the way the guitar dances around Meat Loaf as he sings, both harmonizing his melody, but also fleshing it out and embellishing in its own way so as to feel like a distinct voice within the song. The piano, organ, drums, all other components are equally thoughtful and distinct. Listen to the growling distortion giving way to an absolutely ballistic solo 6 minutes into this track. Every second of this feels like a fucking gift from the heavens flooding the track. Every note the guitar hits feels important, feels necessary, I would argue. None of the soloing here is gratuitous, but it is over the top, which I think those are two very different terms. And I think that is something that has to be acknowledged. The melodramatic overwhelmingness of it all is so key to its impact and appeal. This is a record that actively encourages you to forget about and leave your inhibitions behind. I genuinely believe that in this title track, every single detail was perfectly placed. There's not a single microsecond of it that I could remotely critique. It even finds a way in all of its rollicking intensity to end with a surprisingly soulful, wordless vocal that takes you out. It's an economical masterpiece. It fits as much music as possible into 10 minutes. I want to read really quickly some quotes from the Genius page from Steinman and Meat Loaf about the track itself. Steinman says, and this I think is an encapsulation of Steinman's entire songwriting approach. If you want to get to the heart of who he is as a songwriter, who he is as a writer, and what his interests are, it's in this quote, which is that there is something so thrilling to me about that operatic narrative that involves a cataclysmic event, especially one so perfectly in tune with a teenager's world and rock and roll as a car or a motorcycle crash. He is all about these colossal crash moments, these colossal moments of tumultuous feeling and violence and all this stuff, just explosiveness happening. That's what Steinman's all about, whether it's the explosiveness of a fiery crash or whether it's the explosiveness of a tender feeling of love and affection for someone boiling up inside you till you can't stand it anymore. In his autobiography, Meat Loaf wrote about the solo in this track that in 15 minutes, Todd Rundgren played the lead solo, then played the harmony guitars at the beginning. I guarantee you the whole thing, all of the guitar work didn't take him more than 45 minutes, and the song itself is 10 minutes long. The most astounding thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, Jesus Christ.
How does it feel to just wake up and piss excellence?
Yeah. And another aspect of the whole approach to this record and the philosophy that Rundgren himself has commented on is the relationship to the influence of someone like Springsteen. And apparently Jim Steinman has always denied that the record has anything to do with Springsteen, but that Springsteen is an inspiration point. Rundgren talks about how he sees this as kind of like a spoof of Springsteen, a loving sort of parody, or pastiche rather than parody. You take all the trademarks, the overlong songs, the teenage angst, the handsome loner, and you turn them upside down. So we made these epic songs full of silly puns that Steinman loves. If Bruce Springsteen can take it over the top, then Meat Loaf and Jim Steinman can take it 5 stories higher than that. And that, I think, gets to the real heart of the appeal of this record and this title track as a whole. Like, just, I can't fucking say enough good things about it.
It's fucking amazing. It's brilliant. It's gorgeous. It kicks ass. And if you don't like it, you suck.
Agreed. And then we go into the second track. You took the words right out of my mouth.
This fucking chorus kept me up till 3 a.m. one morning because I could not get it out of my fucking head. And I was just sitting there in my bed mumbling, "You took the words right out of my mouth."
The thing about it, August, is that it's one of the greatest choruses of all time.
It's so good, and I wish it would leave my head.
Oh, absolutely. I totally get that, but it's the highest of compliments. I'm
not gonna dispute that in the slightest.
I gotta say, I love how this song begins with like,
oh
there's
yes, the spoken word intro.
There's like a little bit between the characters, and like the stuff they say here is like genuinely kind of like prosaic and flowery in a way that like I didn't really expect. I was like, some of these lines are just like, what? And then they're like, will he offer me his mouth? Excuse me? I'm sorry? What did you just say?
So yes, this is a song about, okay, so the cool thing about Meat Loaf, and I think this is something I love about this album as a whole, is that there's a lot of records about teenage love, right? But there's a lot of the time songwriters will shy away from just how like sexually charged that is, like just how like the real kind of passion, burning passion of it. They'll get caught up in the flowery emotive side of things, which is important, but they will like, it's almost crass to talk about the sexual aspect of being young and in love.
Teenagers are horny.
And this record is all about that. This record's all about, it's about, yeah, how tender
Teenage horniness is not a crime.
Thank you.
The second Southland Tales joke I've made today.
Thank you. So yeah, it's a record that, I mean, there's these heartbreakingly emotive moments on this record as well, about the sheer pain of being in love sometimes. And then there's just also all these songs about how much you gotta fucking get your nut no matter what it takes. And there's songs like this that are about both of those feelings at the same time. And that intro is perfect. Anyone who sees that the intro to this song sucks, reconsider it, because
it's also like, I think it's just really, it's really funny also too.
Yeah. I love the way it's recorded. I love the fucking like the kind of intimacy of the way
I love the horrendous acting of it.
Which
just adds to
your
the cheese.
throat to the wolf with the red roses.
Yes.
I bet you say that to all the boys.
Yeah. It's so good. It's incidentally, the male voice here is Jim Steinman. So
yeah,
that's
really
that's cool to know. But
Jimothy did it himself.
Yes, Jimothy himself. But yeah, this song is a masterpiece. It's one of the most perfect pop ballad sort of songs of all time. And the thing is, and this is something that's going to carry over to some of the more, I guess, emotional or like maudlin parts of this record, is that the thing is, this record's been in my life for a long time. I've always been familiar with the kind of core songs from like just having parents who are like, you know, grew up in the 60s and 70s and are mums and dads and stuff and do mum and dad shit. And so you hear songs like You Took the Words Right Out of My Mouth and 2 Out of 3 Ain't Bad. You hear those songs. And I kind of always grew up thinking, okay, so Meat Loaf is really corny and Meat Loaf is really dumb. And Meat Loaf is really like hard on sleeve music for like people who I guess are too stupid to intellectualize their emotion, which I know how awful that sounds, but that's the way that I thought when I was like a really young teenager. And I was like, no, good music has to be thoughtful. And so I was reticent to really embrace Meat Loaf for the longest time. I have to be honest about this. I was reticent to embrace Meat Loaf for the longest time. Then I got together with my current partner, Andy, in 2016, and their favorite, I don't know if Andy would say Meat Loaf was their favorite artist, but essentially my partner's childhood was spent listening to a lot of Meat Loaf because my partner's father Meat Loaf is his favorite artist. And so Meat Loaf was the fucking dish of the day every day in that childhood. So I was forced to reconsider Meat Loaf when I got together with Andy. And so listened to a lot of Meat Loaf in the car, made to listen to a lot of Meat Loaf, and taking it in, saying, okay, I'm starting to see some of the charm in this, but still holding myself back from it, still saying like, no, I'm the person who's into the struggling indie singer-songwriter. I'm the person,
cool boy.
I'm the person who's into the darkness. You know, I was going through a real like metal phase at that time.
And then you could get into this and the band The Darkness.
Yeah. So yeah, so for the longest time, I was always
Amen.
holding myself back from fully appreciating Meat Loaf. But in the last couple of years, I've just been like, I'm a fucking fool. This is gorgeous. This is glorious, actually, is the word I would describe it with. It is absolutely just transcendently joyful. And even when the moments when it's not joyful, even the moments when it's like, painfully like, woman, you've just fucking
Come here, woman.
You're breaking my heart.
Come here, woman.
Yeah, even in those moments, I'm like, God damn. Yes.
He's spitting.
Yeah.
Yes. And now I'm just at the point where I'm like, every moment of this, I mean, I know that certain tracks might not be as enjoyed as certain others, but every moment of this, no, there's nothing on here that feels out of step with the rest of it. And so I'm even fond of a song like Heaven Can Wait, which I know is quite maudlin and sort of like very like, ballad era mode sort of thing. But I think the thing that really sells it is how committed Meat Loaf is as a performer. Like it's just, he's such a great singer. I know I'm beating a dead horse here. It's already been said. And there's just this genuine, like real tenderness at this point in the album as well, that feels like I can understand it. It doesn't feel like sheer sentiment. And because of the way in which I've been thrown into this world and thrown into these feelings so powerfully by the music leading up to it. But yeah, I think I kind of skipped over the second song a bit though, so we can go back to that.
No. Jake, what do you have to say about you took the words right out of my mouth, parentheses, hot summer night?
On a hot summer night.
Springsteen. I know we already kind of went over that a little bit, but like this is so Bruce Springsteen. And as a Springsteen acolyte, this could go in like this. The song this reminds me of is what's the song off Darkness in the Edge of Town? Is it In the Streets? Is that what it's called?
Back Streets is on Born to Run. I know the one you mean. Streets of Fire?
Might be, but it's just the sheer raw triumphant tone this has. I mean, it carries itself like it's distinctly a bit more like ballad-esque, sure, but I think it carries the momentum just as well as anything could be expected to. That's the only problem with this, with talking about this album, is that it's just so broadly excellent in mostly the same ways, like, and not in a way where it gets samey, just because every like stylistic change up here not only flows together well, but is also just really distinct from the movement before it. And there's only really so many times you can say like, yo, I love when this fucking Southern fried guitar solo shit gets combined with some whack arena rock shit, and then Meat Loaf goes, ah! And it's like, look, the lyrics themselves, not even from like, I talked about how like catchy they were and how fun they were to sing, but like, yeah, if you look at them in isolation, they might be riddled with cliche. But the thing about that is that Meat Loaf as a vocalist is someone who can sing fucking anything, and you are going to believe every single word and feeling that he says. And that is true on Heaven Can Wait. It's true on the next song, on the relatively slower songs on the album. In fact, I'd argue that he's almost at his most commanding when the song kind of relents a little bit and lets him show, like, I know we're not there yet, but a song like 2 Out of 3 Ain't Bad is a premier example of just raw power. And like, this is just an album that knows it's working within a very particular skill set. And I would describe it as being like, it's like the Swiss Army knife of albums, and that it can do pretty much everything, and it can do pretty much everything well, and it's not going to break. It simply isn't. Yeah, I mean, it's a fucking fun ass song.
What I find particularly hilarious about this song is really just kind of the sentiment behind it and what it's about, because it's essentially a song about a guy getting really just over, like, just kind of expressing this extreme emotion after his like first kiss, essentially. which is kind of hence what that opening part is about, that like, wolf, would you offer your throat to the wolf with red roses? And it's like taking this super silly incidental thing that happens in, I'd say, everyone's life, and just blowing it up to this maximal goofy proportion where you roll with the cheese and you have so much fucking fun with it.
Absolutely. I love the Be My Baby drums. The boom, boom, boom. Like it's like a classic like drum line from Be My Baby. And I love the way that it grounds this in like a very particular time and scene. Like it's coming out of a 50s, 60s pop tradition, but it's rooted very much culturally in the 70s. And so it's like, it's just art. It's immaculate musical construction from Steinman. I absolutely adore it. He was fucking on one with these tracks. You really do, I think, get the feeling that this was his life's work up to this point, something he'd envisioned for so long. And what really gets me about this record is I've never been a teenager in America in the 70s. The world here is, the specifics of this world here is foreign to me. When I watch a movie like Grease or whatever, I don't see anything that I recognize in it. But when I listen to these songs, and through the way that these songs sound, through the way that Meat Loaf sings, through the very specific sort of lyrical details, it speaks to me. It speaks to me in this very beautifully broad and yet intimate way. It transports me to a very specific time that I didn't know I could experience in this way. And I feel like you are the characters in these songs, which really is a difficult and impressive thing for a record like this to do. I really feel like I am experiencing everything that Meat Loaf is experiencing when he is so overcome with emotion on tracks on this record, like All Revved Up with No Place to Go and fucking 2 out of 3 8 Bad. I feel the situation that he's in. And
All Revved Up with No Place to Go is my favorite, really odd, obscure metaphor for being horny. Not just on this album,
what I have to
maybe
say,
in general.
What I have to say about your point, Tyler, is I think it speaks not only to your experience, obviously, but to why this album is so successful, because this album topped charts not only in America, but also in the UK, New Zealand, Australia, pretty much any fucking part of the world that speaks English. This album topped charts in, because yeah, it is so good at that quality of transportation and making you feel in the moment with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
And
yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, it's part of the reason why I can concede the relative simplicity of a song like Heaven Can Wait, but I still find it just it's a beautiful joy to have Meat Loaf singing to me and telling me that I'm a taste of paradise. It's all I need.
Admittedly, Heaven Can Wait is not one of my favorite songs on here, because I honestly find it to be a bit of a lull on the album myself. It just doesn't do a
disappointed smile.
A whole hell of a lot for me, this track.
Oh, fair enough.
No, I mean,
can't take that away from you. You're I know you're particularly immune to certain flavors of very direct sincerity, and that
very overbearing sentiment, I might even say.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
But you know, and look, this is one, but the thing is, this song doesn't kill the pacing of the album for me remotely, so I can't even hold it against that, because it's still engaging enough to the point where I'm like, I didn't like that as much, but it doesn't belabor the point.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I won't lie, I don't really disagree with you, August. I like the song a lot. It's just, this is an album with some really high highs. it's just kind of natural that not everything is going to hit the absolute astronomical, oh my god, supernova god mode level arena rock shit
Sure,
that some
sure.
movements do.
I do just want to shout out there, and we can move on to the next song, that I really love the vocal on this track. I just love the delivery.
Yeah.
I love the impassioned nature of it. I love the sense of melody that Meat Loaf seems to intuitively have to really land and deliver these feelings. And I would say also, if this record represents a sort of sentiment that is tiring, then it represents maybe one of the most, if this song represents a sentiment that is tiring, then I think it represents the distillation of that to its purest form. And that, yeah, it's a cliche maybe because so many people have gone on to do it after him, but I think that he nails the tone of it beautifully here. All Revved Up, however, is back to the balls to the wall shit again. You have this pure Springsteenian joy coming back to the fore, especially with that saxophone on this song. Wow. But over the years, I've grown to love about this song is how heavily it leans into that sad and horny biker energy that the whole record thoroughly imbues. I mean, right down to that central metaphor for horniness.
I loved All Revved Up. Yeah. You know, it might be a little understated, I guess, how like well sequenced this all is. It's like obviously there's like a narrative going on, and you know, each song is so fully formed and fleshed out. But I just think that like whenever there is a necessary lull in energy, it's like building you back and going back and forth. So I think it's a really great way to sort of come back from the slight die in energy and then to build into the utterly fabulous 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah.
I just wanted to finish up my thoughts on All Revved Up.
Yeah, go for it.
Just because I think that's that fantastic metaphor for being horny. One of the funniest things ever. I love the do you know what it's like, where the female backup vocalists come in and the guitar just builds up and harmonizes with them to this absolutely goofy extreme.
See, this is the thing that's fucking made me go nuts, is that I've always thought of Todd Rundgren as this kind of like American producer extraordinaire. I've always associated him with XTC's Skylarking, which is a record he produced. But he's kind of this legendary psychedelic sort of songwriter. He has many classic solo albums in his own right. And then until recently, I had no idea that I knew he produced this, but I had no idea that he was the guitarist on this album as well. I'm like, what the fuck can you not do? Holy shit. The guitar on this record feels like fucking, it's just so timeless. The actual guitar passages themselves across this record feel like they should be in a museum of like the most perfect, or in a textbook of like perfect guitar soloing and perfect guitar melodic work. Amazing stuff. And yeah, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So this is one of the greatest ballads of all time, I think. Again, it's just one of those songs that just, it helps that it is a classic song in the sense that it's endured and been very popular, but it feels like a classic love ballad when you listen to it as well. Like the lyricism is straightforward, but also it has that classic line that I've burned into my mind from like the very first time I heard this song as a kid of but there ain't no Coupe de Ville hiding at the bottom of a Cracker Jack box. It's like so you have sentiments like that, and then sentiments like I'm crying icicles instead of tears and shit. And
that creates there's a great contrast in imagery that makes this song stand out, is that there's all this fiery imagery, like there's on even on the second song, there's fog over the beach, and then there's fire, and like there's the sun in the desert, and this is like that talks about snow and icicles, and it's just like it's a perfect narrative reflection of how the music changes. It's like everything in this song perfectly communicates through both lyrics, song, and theme, how everything has changed for this particular character, this particular like moment of realization, this kind of sobering moment for them. It's just like everything about this is so perfectly utilitarian, and you hardly ever see something like a downright progressive approach to conveying this idea in a slower, like balladesque track. Like that attention to detail often isn't found. Like you just sort of get like a show-stopping emotional moment in a record. That's fine. It's good when albums do that, but it's like the thought that goes into every level of this song and every level of everything else on the album is no more apparent than it is here.
Absolutely. I love, again, the lyrical style is somewhat simple, but it's almost like a masterclass in everything that you've just said. This idea of dragging out a certain premise to hit with a devastating final statement. It feels very much like a dry run for what would be perfected even further on one of the best Meat Loaf songs, on Bad Out of Hell 2, which is of course the timeless. You took the no, it's not that one.
I would do anything for love.
I would do anything for love, but I wouldn't do that, which is incidentally is a fucking 13-minute opus that is often so frequently only heard in its cut down version. But that song is amazing.
To cut any of these songs down would be a fucking no. This is like when we found out that they did a radio edit of that song off of Amputexture. Like, disgusting.
But yeah,
no.
the seeds of that sort of lyrical style that would come to the fore in that song are here as well. And they're equally classic and well-known songs. But yeah, no, I love the sense of character and the lyricism of the song. You have that Cracker Jack box line and all of the different, you'll never do this in this, or you'll never find this in this, are so nice. And just the little storytelling details as well about, I remember how she left me on a stormy night, and just
oh my god, I love the really bitter sense of spite carried throughout this song.
Yeah, and the way he kind of like flips the perspective as well. Like first it's him singing to her that he can't love her, and then it's her singing to him that she can't love him.
That's such a funny, and the chorus tying it together where like they're both in this perfect harmony and disharmony with each other. It's such a great little bit of cheese and silliness that I can't help but fully be in love with that.
Yeah, and I like as well how the whole conceit of the song, the whole thing at the heart of it is they're telling each other they don't love each other, but they're doing it by making a cheap joke. The 2 out of 3 ain't bad thing. Like the core thing about the song is a joke, and it's like it's reflective of how, like, you do when shit is hard and tough, you try and crack a joke to survive it. And yeah, it's just really beautiful love song and very funny and sad and tender all at once. So we now get to talk about the record's second opus. I wanted to say it's opus, but really, like, you can't say Bad Out of Hell, the title track, isn't its opus. So it's got 2 opuses, fair enough. Paradise by the Dashboard Light. This song is a masterpiece. This song, I'm glad we're all in complete agreement about the universe. I assume August is with us as well. The absolute,
why wouldn't I be?
The absolute fucking perfection the song is. And not even just perfection, but like how dizzying it is in terms of ideas, just like Bad Out of Hell was, but like this time focused into this very specific different kind of story that's being told. 3 acts narrative that's being told about this this event that takes place over the course of like maybe 3 or 4 minutes in the time of the song, of this again. And it's perfect, right? Because it's this sexual encounter, or it's this like intimate encounter between these 2 teenage lovers, and then the friction of their competing desires. And it's just so fucking good.
No. Let me sleep on here. Let me sleep on it.
Oh, and my favorite. There's so many classic melodies and lines. My favorite is the melody of, and we were barely 17, and we were barely
dressed.
That's so good.
So good.
Yeah,
and then when they sing it together,
the Rocky Horror Picture Show, the let's do the time
well
again.
Funny fucking story.
Thing.
I said this to August when he mentioned this album the other week anyway, is that Meat Loaf was in that movie, He played one of the main characters in that movie.
Yes.
And he's amazing in it. He's
Yeah.
everything you would want Meat Loaf to be in that movie. And yeah, it has the same sort of musical theater energy. Like again, it's very theatrical. Like I love the baseball announcer like
Oh my
describing
God.
the fucking home run as he's like advancing up her skirt or whatever. Like it's very it's so on the nose, but
It's such a terrible metaphor. It is amazing. It's so dumb. I love it.
Gonna go all the way tonight. We're gonna go all the way
all the way tonight. We're gonna go all the way. And the parts, oh god, and the parts where the two vocalists harmonize and sing like refrained lines together after saying them
Ellen
individually.
Foley, the female vocalist on the song, is so fantastic. She matches Meat Loaf's energy perfectly, like to the point where at that point, halfway through the song, where she's like, "Stop right there! I gotta know right now before we go any further. Do you love me?" It's like, holy shit! I can't believe this is happening.
And what's so great is this is a kind of point in the album where Meat Loaf, who's been this unquestionable force of power in these songs, has himself been overpowered and kind of brought to a halt. And this is where that kind of multi-dimensionality of this record comes in, because this song notably doesn't give our hero the happy ending of just having sex and then kind of being done with it. He has a kind of outro verse where he is in an unhappy marriage with this woman, all because of a stupid decision he made as a young man.
Yeah, it's so
and
funny.
It's so
like,
funny.
It's like where lesser artists would make a joke about, oh yeah, you got to marry me, blah 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 blah, prior to the time, and then the joke is taken so far into like the extreme that it becomes like doubly hilarious. And I love whenever which honestly obviously isn't very often, but I have had the opportunity to play this song to someone who's never heard it before, and the best part is watching their face when I know I'm praying for the end of time comes in. And it's just like all of a sudden you get the joke, and it's like so fucking good. It's like it's and you've had this after like 2 minutes of, well, let me sip on it, and I'm gonna love you till the end of time.
Just like, I want to kill myself.
And it's it's like an 8-minute setup to one punchline.
Yes, that's it.
It's the greatest
so
joke
good.
setup of all time.
Yes.
Yes.
God, it's so fucking good. I want to fucking just die because it's that fucking good. Oh, Jesus. How was there ever a point in my life where I didn't love this? I'm such a fool.
I'm shocked, frankly.
But yeah, God, the melodies, everything about this is amazing. Not to overshadow though the closing track of this record, For Crying Out Loud, which is actually an interesting dynamic
song here.
Yeah, honestly. It's an interesting way of ending this record, because ostensibly, like, you can't overtake the raw energy and just rambunctiousness of Paradise by the Dashboard Light. So reliably, Steinman and Meat Loaf don't really try to like top that. That is the climax of the record, but this is this beautifully tender moment. And again, these two songs together speak to the kind of versatility and, you know, the emotional, you know, complexity of this album, for lack of a better word, because yeah, you have all these songs about you know, how love curdles and all this sort of shit and teenage emotions and all sort of stuff, but you have this beautiful ballad that ends the record. And what I love about it is it's not just this brainless song about loving someone because they're amazing. It's like loving the shitty parts of them too, loving the, you know, loving everything about the situation of being with a certain person, even when that shit can suck sometimes. It's about understanding that love is more than that. And it's just, I don't know, I don't want to try and poeticize it. It's beautiful and I don't feel the need to. It's just, I love it. It gets me so much every time I listen to it. I just
Like
love
the
how
rest of the album, it speaks for itself, man. Like I
Yeah.
feel like the thing that holds, I think, a lot of people from this, other than it being like a particular avenue of rock music that maybe isn't sought after, especially by like, you know, people our age or whatever, is that it's like it's an album from an artist called Meat Loaf. And like fair enough, but also I just we need, if it hasn't been abundantly clear yet, shut up and listen to this. This ending track here is so like it's the perfect way you want an album like this to end, but it contains the emotional complexity that the album actually deserves to go out on.
I mean, it's a great meeting point of very direct sentiment, but also just kind of like devastating, beautifully well-written lyrics. Like, I was cold and you were fire, and I never knew how the pyre could be burning on the edge of the ice field. It's beautiful imagery, and so like it really gets into you, and it's not all that complicated and doesn't need to be, but it's also not like trivially simple either. It's beautiful, and there's lots of great little lyrical nuances that I absolutely love, like the way that the sentiment for crying out loud, the different ways in which that central line for crying out loud, you know I love you, is read in different ways to suggest different meanings is just brilliant. Like, for crying out loud, for that I love you, in the sense that because she, you know, makes a lot of noise when they have sex, he loves her. But also for crying out loud, for you know I love you, like obviously I love you. And then also when you're crying out loud, you know I love you, in the sense that when she's, you know, having a breakdown, when she's, you know, at her lowest, he's always going to be there for her. These three distinct ways of expressing love for someone in different contexts, using the exact same words and just modulating the way they're delivered or changing one word a little bit. That's great writing.
Yeah, no. It's also not one of my favorite tracks on here, but that's okay. No, I still enjoy it. I think it's a nice closer here for the album, but it is for me just so stupendously hard to follow up Paradise by the Dashboard Lights. And I definitely still enjoy this song to a far greater degree than I enjoy Heaven Can Wait. But you know, good
Fair
stuff
enough.
still.
Fair enough.
I enjoy the two of you.
Incidentally,
Yeah.
highly recommend, if you haven't had this experience, listen to this in the car. Like this fucking,
Oh yeah, you bet the fuck
this
I
fucking
have.
goes when you're just like, you know, doing the Big Lebowski, hitting the fucking roof of the car and just
I haven't had the time to do this, but I know I need to because
yeah,
it sounds
it's
so fucking fun.
yeah, it's a great experience. Yeah, amazing record. I love this fucking thing.
It's awesome.
Okay, favorite tracks and ratings. Then Jake, lead us off.
Three favorite tracks. Gotta go with Paradise by the Dashboard Light. Gotta go with Bad Out of Hell, and gotta go with 2 out of 3 ain't bad actually. And least favorite is Heaven Can Wait. That's the one. And I give the album a tentative 8.5 out of 10.
Nice.
Sick.
Well, I mean, I'm just gonna hold up a mirror and copy Jake's favorite and least favorite track here. So this is, you know, fucking 8 out of 10 album. It's awesome. Good stuff.
Beautiful. I see it got the upgrade then because it was a 7 on your Rate Your Music. So
Yeah, no.
that's wholesome.
It was in preparation for this week where I decided, fuck it, it's going up.
Deserving. My three favorite tracks are Bad Out of Hell, Paradise by the Dashboard Light. And my third favorite is absolutely You Took the Words Right Out of My Mouth.
mouth.
Sleeping while you were kissing. And this, I don't really have a least favorite track, to be honest. I'm gonna give it a fucking 10. Fuck it, it's a 10.
Hell yeah.
Or as I'm sure I sound, it's a 10. That's probably how I sound to you. It's a 10.
Yeah. I mean, either way, it's an 8.8 out of 10. That's
Nice.
what this album's average is.
That's
'cause
beautiful.
This album's good. This is
And if Morgan
fucking-
has any sense, he'll give it at least an 8. I'm calling him out.
I mean, yeah, I think he will. Absolutely. But yeah, and that is actually a call out right now that he needs to fucking listen to it, even though he wasn't
Listen
present.
to it.
On that note, let us know what you think of Meat Loaf's Bad Out of Hell, what your relationship with this record is. If you've heard it, if you haven't heard it, go and listen to it, please. I want you to listen to this album and let us know what you think in the comments below. Next week's record club. Actually, I don't think we have a record club next week, but the next record club that we do will be on Julia Holter's Aviary, I believe, once Morgan is back with us. So look out for that. And on Thursday of this week as well, you can look out for our review for the 1991 retrospective of Red Hot Chili Peppers' Blood Sugar Sex Magic, which was definitely a video that we made and that now exists. And you can look forward to that. But yeah, August.
As always,
Give it away,
everyone,
give away
rock
now.
over London, rock on Chicago, Nikon, at the heart of image.